Hey everyone, welcome back to Rewilding the Future. Today, we're exploring the comeback of the Eurasian elk in the UK, the giant browser that shaped our ancient woodlands. Let's dive into why bringing elk home could transform our landscapes, boost biodiversity, and reconnect us with Britain's wild heritage. Now let's begin the fascinating history of the Eurasian elk in the UK. The elk, known in Europe as the Eurasian elk, Alces alces, and in North America as the moose, is the largest member of the deer family. While it is no longer found in the wild in the UK today, elk once roamed across much of Britain during prehistoric times. Fossil evidence confirms that elk were present in the British Isles during the late Pleistocene and early Holocene periods, particularly after the last ice age, when the landscape was more forested and connected to mainland Europe via land bridges. As the glaciers retreated around 10,000 years ago, elk migrated into Britain along with other large herbivores like aurochs and red deer. The UK's expanding woodlands and wetlands provided an ideal habitat for these browsers, which feed primarily on leaves, twigs, and aquatic vegetation. They became part of the rich megafaunal ecosystem of post-glacial Britain. Elk populations in Britain began to decline during the Mesolithic and Neolithic periods, largely due to a combination of human activities and environmental changes. As early humans began farming and settling the land, vast tracts of forest were cleared, reducing the elk's natural habitat. Additionally, elk were likely hunted for their meat, hides, and antlers, further pressuring their numbers. By the Bronze Age, approximately 2500 to 800 BCE, elk had become increasingly rare in the British Isles. The final blow came as agricultural practices intensified and larger human populations expanded. Elk were unable to adapt to the shrinking forests and increasing human presence. Most experts agree that elk went extinct in Britain around 1000 BCE, though exact dates vary by region. Archaeological remains, including bones and antlers, have been found in places like Somerset, the Thames Valley, and northern England, providing key insights into the elk's historical range in the UK. Some remains show signs of butchering, supporting the theory that human hunting played a role in their extinction. In recent years, there has been some discussion among conservationists about the potential reintroduction of elk into suitable parts of the UK as part of broader rewilding efforts. However, such ideas are controversial as they require large tracts of land and significant changes to land management, and elk are no longer native to Britain's ecosystems. The elk's extinction in the UK was the result of a combination of habitat loss, hunting pressure, and human expansion. Once a symbol of Britain's post-Ice Age wilderness, the elk now exists only in the fossil record and in the imaginations of conservationists. Its disappearance serves as an early example of human-driven extinction in the British Isles, echoing broader patterns of megafaunal loss across Europe. Now we will talk about rewilding elk in the UK, and it is a topic that really fascinated me. The elk, or Eurasian moose, Alces alces, once roamed the wild forests and wetlands of the British Isles, but went extinct around 3,000 years ago. As rewilding gains momentum across the UK, conservationists are now asking, should we bring the elk back? While this idea may seem radical, reintroducing elk could play a key role in restoring lost ecosystems and helping Britain reconnect with its natural heritage. Elk are keystone herbivores, meaning they shape the environment through their feeding habits. They browse heavily on shrubs, young trees, and aquatic plants, which can open up dense woodlands and promote biodiversity. Their presence could help restore balance in overgrown areas, allowing light to reach the forest floor and creating habitats for birds, insects, and smaller mammals. Elk also help manage wetland vegetation, which can prevent overgrowth and promote healthy water flow. Reintroducing elk could support the return of lost species interactions in the UK. Many native plants and animals evolved alongside large herbivores, and their disappearance has led to simplified ecosystems. By restoring the role of large browsers like elk, the UK could see more resilient landscapes that better support pollinators, amphibians, and ground-nesting birds. Healthy ecosystems are also more resistant to climate change and invasive species. Elk are iconic animals that capture public imagination. Their return would offer unique opportunities for education, wildlife tourism, and connection to Britain's ancient natural history. Just as beavers have sparked public interest in wetlands, elk could become symbols of a wilder, more ecologically balanced countryside. Their presence in national parks or large private estates could drive ecotourism and boost rural economies. Rewilding elk is not without challenges. Elk require large, connected territories with suitable food and water sources. Human infrastructure, roads, and farming lands could pose barriers or lead to conflict. There would also be the need for public engagement, legal protections, and careful ecological assessments before reintroduction. However, similar challenges have been successfully addressed in other European countries, including Sweden, Poland, and Norway, where elk populations thrive. The UK's ecosystems are among the most nature-depleted in the world. Centuries of deforestation, overgrazing by domestic livestock, and the loss of native species have left many landscapes ecologically incomplete. Reintroducing elk offers a chance to reverse some of this damage. Their return could mark a bold step toward ecological healing, restoring balance, increasing biodiversity, and reconnecting people with the wild past of their land. Rewilding elk in the UK is more than a conservation project. It is a vision of renewal. By bringing back these lost giants, Britain could take a powerful step toward restoring its ecosystems, enriching its landscapes, and rekindling a deeper relationship with the natural world. The elk's hoofbeats, once silenced, could echo again through the forests and wetlands of a wilder, more resilient Britain. Now we will see the beautiful places in Britain where we can rewilding elk in the UK. Reintroducing elk to the UK is not simply about placing them anywhere wild. Elk require specific conditions to thrive: large areas of mixed woodland, wetlands, and limited human disturbance. Identifying the most suitable regions is crucial for their survival and for achieving meaningful ecological benefits. Fortunately, some parts of the UK offer promising environments for a potential elk comeback. The Scottish Highlands are often considered the most suitable location for elk reintroduction. This region has vast expanses of remote, sparsely populated land, reforestation projects, such as the Caledonian Forest Restoration, and a growing rewilding movement. The highlands offer a mix of forests, moorlands, freshwater bodies, and uplands, ideal elk habitat. The climate is also similar to that of Scandinavia, where elk populations flourish. Additionally, the highlands are already home to rewilded species like beavers and white-tailed eagles, making elk a natural next step in the ecological revival of the region. Kielder Forest, the largest man-made forest in England, located in Northumberland, presents another strong candidate for elk reintroduction. The forest is extensive, relatively quiet, and includes both coniferous and native woodland. The presence of water sources, bogs, and open areas adds to its suitability. Efforts to diversify Kielder's ecology and connect it to surrounding natural areas would make elk a valuable addition, helping to control vegetation and promote forest regeneration. Wales has begun embracing rewilding in areas like the Cambrian Mountains, where uplands, forests, and wetlands intersect. Though smaller in scale than Scotland, these areas have the potential to host small, carefully managed elk populations. Mid-Wales also has declining farming activity in certain zones, which opens opportunities for landscape-scale conservation and habitat restoration. Public engagement and landowner collaboration would be key in these regions. Across the UK, several large estates and nature reserves have already embraced rewilding. Places like Knepp Estate in Sussex and Allerdale Wilderness Reserve in Scotland could serve as pilot locations for enclosed or semi-enclosed elk populations. These controlled environments could help scientists study elk behavior in British conditions, assess ecological impact, and build public support before considering full-scale releases into the wild. While elk disappeared from the UK thousands of years ago, many of the conditions that once supported them still exist or are being restored. Regions like the Scottish Highlands, Northumberland, and parts of Wales offer a hopeful stage for their return. With thoughtful planning and collaboration, these landscapes could once again echo with the silent majesty of Britain's lost forest giants, playing a vital role in regenerating wild ecosystems. Elk and Britain's native deer species occupy broadly overlapping but distinct niches. While red and fallow deer tend to browse on shrubs and graze on grasses and mixed woodland edges, elk show a stronger preference for aquatic plants, young saplings, and higher browse, up to 3 m high. This vertical separation reduces direct competition. Elk open the woodland understory by feeding on tall shoots, which can benefit lower browsing deer by promoting undergrowth growth. However, in winter, when resources are scarcer, some overlap in food choice can occur, necessitating careful monitoring of population densities to avoid overbrowsing. The small-bodied muntjac and the more cervid-like sika occupy similar understory niches to fallow and roe deer. elk's foraging tends to have a more dramatic pruning effect on young trees, whereas muntjac focus on low-level shoots and sika browse mid-height shrubs. In a mixed herbivore community, elk can help control sika's preferred browse by removing taller saplings, potentially limiting sika range expansion. Conversely, muntjac often thrive in dense undergrowth left behind by elk's upper branch feeding, so reintroduction might marginally boost muntjac abundance unless counterbalanced by predator or culling regimes. Wild boar root and wallow in forest floors, turning over leaf litter and soil in search of roots, fungi, and invertebrates. Elk foraging creates more open conditions by browsing foliage, which can encourage the understory plants boar favor. In turn, boar activity can expose nutrient-rich soil patches that stimulate new plant growth, benefiting elk's broad diet. Both species, however, can damage tree regeneration if present at high densities, so their combined impact should be managed through landscape-scale monitoring and perhaps natural predation by wolves or lynx where feasible. Heck cattle and other auroch proxies are large grazers that prefer grasslands, open woodland glades, and riparian zones. Their grazing keeps grass swards short, whereas elk browsing opens up woody growth. Together, they complement each other by creating a mosaic of habitat patches. Cattle-maintained grasslands adjacent to elk-pruned shrublands. This patchwork fosters high plant diversity and benefits ground-nesting birds and invertebrates. Coordination of stocking densities allows each herbivore's impact to be balanced, avoiding either shrub encroachment or grass overgrazing. Rewilded horses focus largely on grasses, sedges, and rushes, often grazing out open meadows and damp hollows. Elk, by contrast, tend to browse taller woody vegetation. Their combined grazing and browsing create a structurally diverse habitat. Horses keep open glades, elk open the woodland fringe. This diversity supports a wider array of insects, small mammals, and ground-breeding birds. Seasonal movements may overlap in riparian marshes, so planning should ensure access to multiple water sources to reduce localized pressure. European bison, Bison bonasus, mirror elk in preferring mixed woodland meadow edges, but differ in body size and digestive physiology. Bison are bulk grazers that will also browse up to about 2 meters high, but consume more grasses overall. In mixed assemblies, bison often graze the understory matrix that elk open by removing higher branches. This complementarity accelerates natural succession cycles, keeping young forests in a patchwork stage. However, because both species can strip bark in winter, management must ensure sufficient forage in unfrozen marshes and maintain corridors for seasonal movement to minimize localized bark browsing damage. Water buffalo have been trialed in the UK to manage marshy areas by grazing and trampling coarse vegetation, creating open channels and shallow pools. Elk complement this by browsing on woody riparian vegetation, young willows, alder saplings, and aquatic plants, further opening the wetland canopy. Together, buffalo and elk generate a dynamic mosaic of open water, emergent vegetation, and scrub, benefiting amphibians, aquatic invertebrates, and wetland birds. However, managers must monitor herd sizes to prevent over-trampling or over-browsing in sensitive zones. Introduced populations of red-necked wallabies occupy shrubby understories and feed on grasses and herbs at low levels. Elk, by contrast, focus on higher browse and aquatic flora. This vertical partitioning minimizes direct competition. In areas where both co-occur, elk's pruning of taller shoots may even facilitate wallaby foraging by promoting dense low growth. However, because wallabies are susceptible to predation by native carnivores, the increased visibility in more open corridors could raise wallaby predation risk, a factor to watch in mixed species landscapes. The Eurasian otter thrives along clean rivers and wetlands rich in fish and invertebrates. Elk's browsing of riverbank shrubs and fallen branches creates sunny glades and shallow margins, enhancing in-stream primary productivity and providing otters with easier hunting access to slow-flowing pools. Furthermore, elk wallows and footprints can form new microhabitats, small ponds and muddy patches, boosting amphibian and crustacean populations that supplement otter diets. Maintaining riparian vegetation patches, however, ensures otters still find cover for holts. Reintroduced beavers transform waterways by building dams and creating wetland complexes. Elk's browsing of saplings can balance beaver-driven woodland advancement into meadows by preventing canalization of all young trees. In turn, beaver ponds increase aquatic plant biomass, food for elk, and create marshy fringes ideal for elk wallowing and cooling. This mutual habitat engineering accelerates wetland creation and maintenance, but coordination is needed to avoid beaver-elk conflicts over preferred tree species, for example, willow poplar. Small mammals, for example voles, mice, shrews, hedgehogs, depend on dense undergrowth, fallen logs, and tussocky grasses. Elk's selective browsing opens the canopy, increasing light penetration and promoting a patchwork of vegetation heights. This heterogeneity supports more seed-rich grasses and forbs, boosting food resources for granivorous and insectivorous small mammals. Elk disturbances, tracks, wallows, antler rubs, also create microhabitats, bare soil patches decomposing wood that favor invertebrates, further enriching the small mammal food web. Bird communities, from ground-nesting snipe and ptarmigan in uplands to woodland songbirds and waders in wetlands, benefit from the habitat mosaics shaped by elk. Browsing of saplings and scrub opens nesting sites for ground and shrub breeders, while elk ponds attract waders, for example lapwing, redshank, and provide pollen-rich aquatic plants for dabbling ducks. The structural diversity, open glades, scattered saplings, wallow pools, supports higher bird species richness and abundance. Careful monitoring of nesting success and predation rates ensures elk presence remains a net positive for avifauna. Wolves are natural predators of elk across their range in Europe and North America. In a rewilding context, reintroducing wolves to the UK would re-establish a vital predator-prey dynamic that helps regulate elk numbers and behavior. Elk in wolf-populated ecosystems tend to move more frequently, avoiding overbrowsing in sensitive areas, a phenomenon known as the landscape of fear. This pressure allows woodlands to regenerate more evenly, benefiting overall biodiversity. Wolves would also cull sick or old elk, keeping populations healthy. However, suitable areas for this interaction would need to be large, wild, and free from human-livestock conflict, such as the Scottish Highlands or parts of northern England. Reports of feral wolfdog hybrids in rural parts of the UK raise ecological and safety questions. These hybrids may form small packs and could potentially hunt or harass large prey like elk, particularly calves. However, their behavior is unpredictable, and they lack the ecological niche stability of true wolves. If elk are reintroduced and feral wolfdogs expand, the risk of unnaturally high stress or injury to elk herds could increase. Effective wildlife management would require monitoring and humane intervention to prevent wolfdog populations from becoming problematic. The Eurasian lynx, another candidate for rewilding in the UK, is a solitary ambush predator that preys mostly on roe and sika deer. While adult elk are generally too large for lynx, calves, especially in their first few months, may be vulnerable. In Europe, lynx help control deer populations and indirectly benefit vegetation recovery. If both elk and lynx were reintroduced, the lynx could play a secondary role in controlling elk calf numbers, though this would be rare. Their coexistence would be ecologically compatible with little direct competition or conflict. Confirmed persistent reports suggest the presence of large exotic cats in the UK, such as black leopards, so-called panthers, cougars, or unidentified hybrids, likely stemming from past exotic pet escapes. If such predators are present and breeding, they could have localized impacts on wildlife. While adult elk would be a challenging and risky target for these cats, calves might be vulnerable. Unlike wolves or lynx, big cats are ambush predators and could influence elk behavior by instilling wariness and encouraging herd cohesion and movement. The Scottish wildcat and its domestic hybrids are too small to hunt elk or their calves, but could indirectly benefit from elk presence. Elk maintain open forest mosaics through browsing, which creates hunting corridors and shelters for smaller predators. Wildcat prey, rodents, rabbits, small birds, would likely become more abundant in elk-affected ecosystems. Thus, elk rewilding may enhance the wildcat's hunting grounds and indirectly support their conservation, especially if woodland structure becomes more complex and diverse. Brown bears once roamed the UK and remain a potential, though long-term, rewilding candidate. In regions where elk and bears coexist, for example Russia, Scandinavia, bears occasionally prey on elk calves and scavenge from wolf kills, but are not significant predators of healthy adult elk. More importantly, their omnivorous diet and digging behavior help shape ecosystems, while their presence adds pressure on elk to remain mobile and alert. The mere presence of bears can shift elk foraging patterns, reducing overbrowsing near sensitive habitats like riverbanks. If introduced, bears would contribute to a multi-layered trophic web that encourages ecosystem resilience, but they require vast territories, secure forests, and careful public integration plans. The future of a rewilded UK envisions landscapes teeming with the full complement of native and analog species, reinstating the dynamic processes that shaped Britain throughout the Pleistocene. From the Caledonian pine woods to the Somerset wetlands, this vision imagines forests sculpted by browsing elk and wild cattle, rivers widened by beaver dams, and open meadows grazed by hardy horses and water buffalo. Apex predators, wolves, lynx, and even the memory of big cats would patrol these realms, keeping herbivore populations in check and fostering a mosaic of habitats. This interconnected web of life would not only restore ecological balance, but also reconnect people with the wild heritage of their islands. Pleistocene rewilding advocates for bringing back species or their close ecological equivalents that disappeared at the end of the last ice age, animals that once engineered and enriched Britain's ecosystems. Elk, Eurasian moose, and European bison return the function of large-scale browsing. Wild cattle and conic horses reopen grassland patches. Wild boar and water buffalo roughen wetland edges, and beavers rebuild wetland hydrology. Even non-native species such as wallabies or feral wolfdogs can serve as provisional analogs where true natives are unavailable. Through these restorations, we aim to re-establish lost trophic interactions and habitat heterogeneity. In this Pleistocene tapestry, every creature plays its role. Browsing elk and bison thin, dense scrub, allowing undisturbed shade for Eurasian otters and small mammals to thrive along the newly sunlit riverbanks. Beaver dams interlock with elk wallows to create amphibian nurseries. Wild horses and cattle maintain open glades that continental birds and ground-nesting species require. And apex carnivores, wolves and lynx, patrol across lands shared with free-roaming big cats and the occasional brown bear, reinforcing population health. Even sporadic feral wolfdog packs or non-native wallabies find their niche, contributing to a dynamic ecosystem that pulses with the rhythms of predation, foraging, and regeneration. Today's UK is one of Europe's most nature-depleted nations. Restoring Pleistocene-era functions through rewilding offers a pragmatic path toward reversing biodiversity loss, bolstering ecosystem resilience against climate extremes, and mitigating flood risk by reviving natural water regulation. Beyond ecology, rewilding revives cultural and spiritual connections to an ancient wild Britain, inspiring stewardship and sustainable tourism. By weaving together megafaunal browsers, ecosystem engineers, and predators, Pleistocene rewilding offers not just the return of individual species, but the reawakening of landscapes that can thrive into the next millennium. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the wild past and the possible future of the UK's landscapes. From elk roaming ancient woodlands to wolves restoring balance and beavers reshaping rivers, rewilding is more than reintroducing species. It's about restoring life, movement, and magic to our ecosystems. If you believe in a wilder, richer future for Britain, don't forget to subscribe for more rewilding stories. Like the video to support our channel, comment below. Which species do you want to see return? Together, let's rewild the future.